Welcome to the Mindset Michelle TV show. We're so super excited for you to be joining us for yet another show and yet another expert who's going to share some incredible tips with us. And today's guest is the lovely Sunjoo. Hello, Sunjoo.
Hi, Michelle. Really good to see you. Thanks for having me here.
It's fabulous having you on the show. And for those of you that aren't aware of Sunjoo Kim, she is an incredible senior leader in the IT and digital space. I've known Sunjoo for a number of years and followed her career. She's worked in some of Australia and the world's leading IT and technical roles as an innovation manager, a digital transformation manager. She specialises in supporting organisations to go through some of those difficult changes. She's also an award-winning author. She's an award-winning this and that. She has many different awards and celebrations under her skin, but that's enough from me about Sunjoo. I'm fascinated with your story, your background. Please share with everybody, how did you come to be working in IT and what is it that interests you about your role?
Thanks, Michelle. It's kind of funny to hear from someone else about me. I think, there's always this little bit of mismatch about what I think who I am and what others sees me. So really good question. Why technology? So I grew up in Korea and finished my uni in Seoul with applied statistics as a major. And part of that study was computer science and economics and how to use the statistics in the way we take the value out of those domain. And it was an interesting time really in IT world because internet was just invented, email was becoming commercialized, and personal computer was really popping up like mushrooms. So, and there was some practical reasons ago in Korea in 1990s. If you're not doing something really pragmatic and tangible, it was very difficult to find a job. So I thought, well, maybe technology is the right pathway for me. I felt, as a young woman in 1990s, I was really thinking hard about how to become independent and financially, and also in many sense of back then in Korea, which wasn't quite there yet in terms of equality between genders. So so that's how I started with technology. I was fascinated by its power, and really the world was changing with the power of technology, which was really amazing. So I think, initially it was really about technology as kind of superpower, which didn't really have that much of an impact to people. So I started as a consultant, implementing the entrepreneurial resource planning system, the typical likes of finance, HR, logistics, pretty much the stock standard operational functions any big companies have. And I learned a great deal about how the company actually operates and where the technology can contribute and not. So does that answer your question, Michelle?
It does. And I think you explained it so beautifully and so realistically as well, as, a young woman starting off in her career in Korea in the 90s, and what types of options would have been available. And it's interesting that you were saying that the computers were popping up like mushrooms, and I think that that's a very true reflection of what it was like in that time, where people entering the workforce would have been going, well, I don't quite know what technology is or what computers are, but hey, this is where the world is going, in a similar way to how AI is kind of dominating conversations at the moment. But I love also that you learnt that technology is a superpower, and you also understood how companies work and people work, and And that gave you a really good insight into people, and of course, people are what make the world go around. I'm interested, Len, given that you've lived in Korea and France and Australia and all sorts of amazing countries doing this technology work and had such a successful career with whatever you put your mind to. What do you feel then that success, what does success now mean to you?
So I remember your deliberate instruction about to not define the success by financial measure, which I totally agree. I think success has to be measured by actually the cost you have had to pay to get that. And then also success has to be measured by how does it make you feel when you are doing it? You know, how does it make you feel like you are actually living your full potential? How does that make you feel almost playing, not really working, and actually having that exhilarating feeling of having fun because you love it so much? Personally, I feel that I am a rare personality type. I can be very introvert as well as extrovert, depending on the context and the time I am in. I do enjoy some alone time, going a little bit deeper into understanding how things works and honing in my knowledge and skills. But I also feel quite lonely if I just keep doing that without interacting and connecting with people, to achieve also very practical problems. Because I think, as everyone says, knowledge is power. But for me, my personal version of power is the application of that knowledge. So you can have a lot of knowledge and ideas in your head, but if you do not have that opportunity or great context to apply that knowledge for actual outcomes, the change in the world in a positive way. So it actually boils down to, whose life is being improved and how. So for me, success defines that kind of ebb and flow status. When I work, do I have that feeling of expanding myself and being actively connected to the people I care about? And am I feeling that I am contributing to make their lives better? So that's my personal definition of the success. If I can be in more of those moments, I don't even dare to imagine I will be like that all the time. But more than less, if while I'm working, if I have that consistent feeling of, yeah, I'm growing, I'm expanding, I'm connecting better with people, and I'm contributing to improvement of my life and people who I care, their life improvement. For me, that's the definition of success.
And what a fabulous definition of success it is, Sunjoo. I really hear that introverted and extroverted elements, as well as the drive for you to be contributing and having that growth in whatever role that you do, and that's reflected, I think, in the innovation and the digital curiosity that you show and have been showing way before it became trendy. And also, I really love how you keep coming back to this. It has to be practical, and it has to be something that you can have as an outcome and support organisations, individuals, whatever it may be, in applying those outcomes and applying those areas for success. Now, as somebody that has built up this successful career over many years and has learnt, I guess, the inside outs of technology, many people watching may be wondering, well, how did you do it? What sort of things can you share and suggestions that can you share as being a woman from Korea, and even a woman from Korea working in France, I think might be an interesting story in itself. But You've worked in so many countries. What do you feel has been helpful in making you successful?
Yeah, really great question, Michelle. A few thought bubbles popping up in my head. So I really loved my job with technology because that really enabled me to go to that many different places as I wanted, and live that experience and learn from them. Of course, every different countries I worked in, such as Korea, Japan, France, US, Australia, they do have their differences, but they also have very big part of commonality in that at the end of the day, you have to bring all this complexity, reduce that down into very simple questions. What are the problems you are trying to solve? And because technology has been evolving so fast and in unimaginable, amazing ways, sometimes people get carried away by all of those features and functions and technicality, keep talking about them and, what can we do with this tool-based approach, you know what I mean? But I found that it's really important to actually go back to the basic, the very fundamental question of what are the problems are we having? And without talking about all that technical jargons, can you verbalize them in very plain English? If we do a great job, what does that mean to these people in this context? How would their life will be improved in a very plain language speak? So I really admire what Einstein said. He said, if I have only 1 hour to save the world, I will spend first 55 minutes to understand the problems and spend the remaining 5 minutes to find the solution. And I think this is such a truthful statement. Rather than keep, going around and do a bit of shopping list of which features and functions can we use and how can it be, applied, go back to that very core question of, what are the key pains people are experiencing and what are the opportunities which is most critical, needs to be prioritized because they are aligned with the critical outcomes that business wants to achieve. So spending a lot more time in understanding the people, the lives they are having, the overall context of the totality of the journey, their journey, which obviously being assisted and complemented by technology. But don't just think about technology. Look at it holistically, the people's lives and context of it, and the process and policies, their sentiment, their skill level. All of those things needs to be coming together to truly harness the power of technology in the right manner.
What a fabulous, fabulous way. And you can really hear your expertise of many, many years of working with organisations to support them with bringing that focus back onto asking the right questions. And that example you shared of Einstein, if you have 1 hour within which to make a decision, spending 55 minutes asking the questions before you spend the last 5 minutes then coming up with the options for that solution. I hear so much wealth of knowledge and insights in that. What I'm fascinated by as well, though, is with some of these senior leaders that you will have been dealing with, and where it does come back to dollars and cents, when you're helping them to focus on what does success look like and how do we create success in this situation, what is it in your experiences in your own life and in your own career that you have used to help them to reframe their thinking is really what I'm asking, because sometimes it can just be a completely dollars and cents kind of conversation or an options and features and solutions kind of conversation. But when we're talking about people changing the way that they think, and even that great Einstein example is about helping people to change the way they think. What sorts of tools or techniques do you use to help people change how they think?
So really, again, great point you're raising, Michele. Although we want to really focus on making people feel better in the process of that journey to get to that outcome, and we want to empower them, and we want to empathize with their feelings and pains, it's not just about that, because we are not a charity at the end of the day. The art of doing these things is really having that close link, because in fact, making people doing their work better, making them feeling better, are directly related to the financial outcome. So for example, if people are confused by using certain system, you will inevitably have to spend more dollars on support or training them, or changing the system so actually certain transaction can be done in a shorter time of manner, which directly impacts their cash flow and dollars. So I challenge you that all of this, what seemingly to be a human problem, can be actually translated into some sort of financial metrics. It is really possible. And it's a bit like bottom-up and top-down approach happening in parallel and meeting somewhere in the middle. Of course, you need to go around and ask genuine questions to people because you care about them. What is your pains, and where do you trip over? Where do you see you need to be supported better? But then at the same time, if you look at company strategy about what is the key business priorities in terms of achieving those business viability and technical feasibility type of objectives, they are meant to be meeting somewhere in the middle. And you can really link them by defining simple but effective metrics in measuring the progress while we are trying to get there.
So how do you help them, the leaders, because those types of fabulous linkages between this is the people issues and this is the financial costs, and even in the not-for-profit sector, this is the social impact, and then this is the costs elements. But I'm interested in being successful in what you've done and how you've created that success has obviously meant that you've used certain ways of thinking and certain tools to think in those ways that you've then been able to share and influence the people around you with. So what would be, I'm thinking here maybe things like you use case studies where you said to them, in this example, when we coached these people in this way. So another way of putting it might be, surrounding yourself with other people that have been on similar journeys.
Yeah. Another great point, Michele. I think the buy-in you need to get from executive level is critical for any success in creating this transformational change. And the easiest way to get that engagement and interest from the executives are actually talking about some not detailed, but back of the envelope level dollar figures, which is actually costing the organization by not fixing it. So what we call problem value metrics. So if we don't fix their problems, how much is it actually costing the organization? And when we fix that problems, how much saving or benefits or return we will get? So that's one dimension of it. But at the same time, you also need to work on a lot of leadership and culture aspect at the same time, because at the end of the day, the success of the company is about giving that right value and experience to their customers. that is the sole way for any organization to succeed and sustain their existence. And if you are not understanding that your staff are actually the most valuable asset to achieve that outcome, which is giving that great experience and value to the customers, and working backwards, that people cannot give what they don't have. So their people will have to have that great experience and value in the way they're working. Therefore, they can actually deliver those value to their customer. It's like two different sides of one coin. They are not separated. So that's the leadership and culture part, which needs to be carefully backed up by some tangible metrics in terms of, how we will measure. Okay, the number one, what's the cost of not doing this and not fixing these issues? And then what are the metrics we need to put together? If we really get there, that nirvana or, true north or whatever, what are the success metrics we can put together? And also how we will measure whether we are going in the right direction to get there, the progress metrics. So those things are kind of, quite quantitative, but needs to be complemented with those qualitative element in terms of the leadership and culture, as well as having that clear roadmap, articulating, how many different programs needs to kick in for that organization to reach that goal.
Absolutely fascinating, and I know for people viewing and hearing about problem and value matrices and other terms, this would be really, really fascinating and interesting. And I'll just kind of translate some of that into everyday speak as well, so that, if you're looking at, say, cost benefits of taking this action versus that action, or taking this job versus that job. So when Sunjoo is talking about the problem value matrix, it's really that cost benefit that you're looking at, and the opportunity cost of, if I don't do something, or if I do something, what are the financial outcomes? And that can be, deciding on a new TV or deciding on a new job. The other element she was talking about there was the measuring it. And so one of the things that you can do, and that we really encourage people to do, is actually to lean into something. So once you make a decision, then actually testing and measuring it and going, well, I'm going to make this decision for now, but actually in a little bit of time, I might change that, because once I have more information and more input about the cost value around it, you might change that. And when talking about the leadership and the cultural aspect, that also comes back to understanding that people, are the most important thing in an organization, but it's also in your life and in what your day-to-day activities are. So when looking for work, for example, using your networks to go and help you look for those roles. When looking for new schools, you see all the time people on Facebook and elsewhere go to their communities and say, my children are going to a new school, what schools do you recommend? So these are really three fabulous aspects around creating that mindset, looking at the cost benefit of it, looking at well, I'm going to pick one and measure it for a little while, and then looking at the leadership and the culture, who are you surrounding yourself with, and how can you use that network to support you to keep building, whether it's your career or whether it's your business in an organizational sense, or your relationships. You can use any of these three fabulous, fabulous tips that Sunjoo has been sharing in not just corporate sense, but each of these other areas as well.
Yeah, and while I'm listening to your great summary, did I all say that? you summarize it even better than what I said. There's actually one more element I was thinking about, is really critical, is that people empowerment and connection. So whilst we are talking about all this strategic measuring metrics and all that, you really have to uplift their skill set by giving them some pragmatic and very useful training and support. And at the same time, the mindset shift. There has to be this cultural work. I used to do this very fun engagement format called think tank. You were mentioning before, Michele, about case studies, examples, all these great ideas about and theories about where we are heading to, our next objectives. You need more of these conversational forums to engage people and give them a great example of how those things are being applied and having a great success, or no, or not success, because we always learn from the failures and mistakes. I think that people engagement aspect, mindset shift, as well as skill set shift, and also tool set shift. That's where specifically the IT technology comes in and actually give them the right tool set. But often organization makes that mistake of just going for tool shopping. So they pick a software. They haven't really given a great deal of thoughts or consultation or engagement and connection with people, but just go and buy the tool and, push them out. But tool set shift, for me, it's like the last thing. You've got to shift their mindset. You've got to shift their skill set and capability level. And then the right tool can actually bring the right benefit. In IT, all too often, so many projects supposedly successful in terms of coming in time, on budget, on scope, actually leave very unhappy users afterwards. So many of these successful projects actually doesn't deliver successful outcomes from people perspective because their mindset hasn't changed, their skill hasn't been uplifted, and they just got, this shiny toy pushed into their hands. They don't know what they should be doing with. So
again, such incredible insights, and from somebody that has had many years of implementing shiny toys, and I really love that way that you've described it. But more importantly, just to really capture that there, you were talking about the mindset shift, the skill shift, and then the tool set shift. Really important and key points for people to understand when building digital technology and transformation. But Sunjoo, what is the best way that people may be able to get hold of you?
I think LinkedIn is the easiest way to reach out to me. I have my personal email address in my contact information section there as well. Yeah, I think that would be probably the easiest way to start.
Wonderful. So, and my favorite question to finish up then is, if you were to give some advice to your younger self, what might that advice be?
Did you say younger?
Your younger self, yeah. So
younger self. Oh, yes. Well, if I can roll back about 25 years back, what would I do differently, right? I think I will spend a lot more time and energy in understanding how people are living in that business context. So I remember I was spending a huge amount of time in understanding every single aspect of that technology I'm about to implement to give them that great advice, how you should use the system. I mean, that's important. But what's even more important, putting the cart behind the horse, not putting the horse before the cart, you really have to ride along to that workspace, how they are actually carrying out that business process, who's using it, and what's their level of digital maturity or acceptance level. I think those things, understanding that human context is equally or even more important than me knowing what this technology can do. So that's the area I would spend even more time and pay attention to. I was very lucky to be introduced to human-centric digital innovation when I was consulting director for Fujitsu, where basically they shifted that paradigm completely. So before that time, I was really, implementing the technologies. That was my main forte. But that's what human-centered design does for us. Let's shift that paradigm. Let's put the human in the center and look at the whole world, which will consist of some technology part and non-technology part. And that technology part is ever increasing, as you know. But having that holistic mindset is really important. And that will be for younger myself. I would have done that a bit earlier. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Sunjoo. It's been absolutely fascinating having you on the show today and hearing you speak about your journey from Korea all the way through to Fujitsu and France and everywhere and everything in between. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Michelle. It was great talking to you. Really appreciate for the opportunity.
You're very, very welcome. And for everybody watching out there, we really appreciate all of the amazing feedback, and we appreciate your ongoing support for the show and for having incredible guests like Sunjoo on the show. But for now, from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.